Snowpocalypse is upon us. If you don't have your milk and bread, you're fucked. So, yeah. So, starve for a couple days, and you'll get back out. We'll survive this. Knoxville always does. This certainly isn't going to be anything like we had last year. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out the cool stuff we got out there. And Hollowroot 24 is set. The date is ready to go, April 12th. Sign-ups will be coming very, very soon, probably this week, to get in if you want to race a derby car, if you want to set up your... invent some of whatever cool stuff that you do, or sponsor us, or do any other volunteer work or something like that. So check that out, as well as the other stuff that we have at Almost in Agreement. Yeah, we are all available on all your favorite podcast providers. Like, friend, follow, share, text us to your friends. Do whatever you can do to share the word. We hope everybody has a happy, safe weekend this weekend. If you have to go out, be careful. If you don't have to go out, I don't know, curl up and watch a TV show or something like that. It's time to binge.
Hey.
All right, so it's 2 weeks in a row. Last week we had a little COVID scare, so we just did it remotely to avoid any concerns with that. But we also did have the illustrious Matt Shears to call in from. I'm still not sure where he is right now, whether it's in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, or in Virginia. He was talking about going back and forth, and then he's referenced Knoxville is here a couple of times in first person version. So I don't know where he is, but he called in last week, and that was fun. As mentioned in the intro, it is Snowmegedon 2025. I don't know what the official. Have you seen any official numbers on?
No, I checked a few hours and I didn't see any totals that were listed. It's pretty much just talking about road conditions and
yeah, it's pretty.
It was probably going to taper off, maybe freezing rain.
I mean, I went out. I had to go out a couple times a day to deal with X, Y, and Z. So it actually was pretty fun. So like I got up and I got out this morning before it started because I had a couple things I wanted to do in the somewhat in the panic shopping mode. Not really, but a couple things I wanted to go ahead and get out before, just in case it was worse than I thought it was going to be. And then I had to go run some stuff for work. And then my kids wanted to go and get the sleds out. Well, my eldest wanted to go and meet up with some friends that were getting the sleds out at Lakeshore. And so I drove out there and helped and dropped them off. And so, you know, it's part of it is luck, it's luck because I didn't do it on purpose when I bought the house. My street is flat from about my house, a little bit further down from my house to Morel. Morel is busy enough that it gets good work. So if I can get to Morel, I can usually get out and about pretty good. And so a little bit of luck on my part for being accessible that way. But, you know, it got a little dicey a couple times. The first time I went out, second time I went out, it was no big deal.
Let's say even Morel has like three pretty big hills.
Yeah, the one coming like that was I didn't even switch into 4-wheel drive. I wasn't paying attention when I left the house. I got to the bottom of the hill right in front of the school that goes up to Nubbin Ridge.
Right.
And a couple people in front of me, like it was one of those, like as I was coming up, I was going slow. It's snowing. I was being careful. But like I could tell as a couple people were going up the hill, everybody'd spaced out real big because somebody was having a little bit of an issue. Right. And so I stopped at the bottom of the hill, switched into 4-wheel drive while I was waiting for that to settle it down. And I got a little. I mean, I definitely had the traction control was having to work. It wasn't just like, okay, we're rolling. And then coming back down the hill on Morel to Westland felt scary, but it didn't do anything. Westland from Morel to North Shore was bad. That was real bad. I've not taken that stretch since that first time. North Shore all the way down. I just, like the other two times I went North Shore all the way down to Morel and took right there in front of the Weigels and shit.
Well, that Westland little stretch there's a couple little straight spots. There's a couple, pretty windy spots.
Yeah, especially the past Morel, Westland's not very. It's curvy and mostly not flat. For the first half of it or so.
Yeah, it's much like weird, kind of like banks in the road itself.
Yeah, it kind of goes down. There's a couple stretches there. The thing I don't like about, like, this is a Knoxville standard, and there's a number of places to do it. Westland's got a good chunk of it where you barely get the totality of the white line, and there may be like a half an inch strip of asphalt on the outside of the line.
Yeah.
Before the road, there is no shoulder. It falls off like 8 inches into the dirt, and then there's a ditch on the side of the road where if you get off of there, you're down in that ditch and you're fucked.
Right.
And there's a bunch of that back there in the Westland stuff that I don't like having to deal with. But anyway, if you don't have to get out, like you and I don't have to get out for the rest of the day, don't get out. So it's.
Yeah, I always think it's funny. I always wonder who they're talking to when the news is like, don't get out unless you have to. All these people are like, well, I have a job that I'm supposed to go to. Like, can I call my boss and be like, well, they're telling me I'm supposed to go out. Like, do I have to? And they're like, yes, you have to come into work.
Yeah, we're pretty. Our thing just the same as last year and stuff like that. Is like if I feel like you gave a shit to try, I'm not gonna pitch a fit if you can't go. But if it's literally that you look out your window and you saw snow and you didn't, and I can't get out. Like my thing last year.
My driveway looks really slick.
Right. My thing last year was there was a couple of staffers that we had that and I told them all this year as a preparatory when they called for this weather coming. I was like, listen, if your driveway or the street you're on is, it's going to get bad, but there's a nearby, like a side road in your neighborhood or the whatever, don't park in your driveway tonight. Park somewhere where you can get out tomorrow.
Right.
You might have to walk a little bit and not get out of your car and walk straight in your front door. But I had it last year. My entire neighborhood was parked from my house down to Morel. Like all of my stretch of the road was full of cars because past my house is where the hills on my road start. And so people parked up here, walked home, and it's a decent walk and it's cold and it's gross and blah, 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 whatever. But, from my house to Morel is flat and then Morel was workable. And so these people were being smart and putting themselves in a position to be able to come and go with a little bit of walk. And that's the stuff that pissed me off about staff. And so we made a big point of it this year. It's like, hey, take a second. If you've got an option, do it. If you don't have an option, we got a couple of guys that live up in Cumberland County and not Cumberland. I said that yesterday. Not Anderson.
Campbell
County. On freaking mountaintops. I'm not going to make them get a hotel for the night in Knoxville just so they can be at work tomorrow.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, if there's options, please put forth some effort. If it's too much, don't go crazy. I don't want anybody getting hurt. Don't go crazy. But it's also, it's the other one too. It's like it's 4:45 and they're supposed to be at work at 5 and they're just walking out their front door. I got to take my car out. Okay. You're going to be late. Well, yeah, but it's like, well, that's one.
Anyway, I can not have to dig my car out. That'd be cool.
I know
I haven't even started to try to dig it out yet. But.
It's like, like they say on the news, if you have to get out, give yourself some extra time,
right?
And be careful and go slow. It's that easy. I'm always I always have a blanket in the back of the car. That's just one of my standard rules. But be careful, and that's it. So anyway, hope if you had to get out and you were careful. There were definitely some reported incidents throughout the day today, and I certainly saw some people that were probably going to be incidents later driving around, like it was a Tuesday in July, and
driving fast.
Yeah, just it's it was like probably like a 97 Civic. And it was a riced out car anyway, and that's a racist thing, and I apologize, but it's the only way I can describe it. You know what I'm talking about when I say it that way. And, maybe it was just the muffler was that loud that it seemed like it was going faster than it was, but, a two-wheel drive little Honda Civic out here.
He was just trying to skid.
Maybe.
Front-wheel drive does pretty well on slick roads, but.
Right. Until it doesn't, but yeah.
Right.
It does.
That's why people make a mistake with 4-wheel drive. They're like, well, I could just drive anywhere. It's like, well, it might help you kind of go up a hill, but it doesn't help you stop when you're sliding.
Right.
4-wheel drive doesn't make...
I did take the occasion since I had the kid in the car on the way. I was like, here's the thing with driving and slick stuff, man. Once you lose traction, you lost traction. There is no getting it back. You're done. So you can, like, the only time you ever plan on losing traction is if you're trying to get up a hill. It's just, that's the only time you want to let because he used the technical terms. I was like, gravity and stuff. Like, if you're going down a hill, once you lose traction, you're going until you hit something. And he's like, yeah, gravity and momentum. I was like, yeah, exactly. So sometimes when you're trying to get up a hill, you want to give yourself enough momentum that even if you lose traction, your momentum carries you the rest of the way up. But other than that, man, you lose traction, That's that. So hopefully he remembers that when his turn comes around.
Hopefully.
So anyway, that's our almost an agreement weather report. By the time you guys are listening to this, unless you're on one of the deep, dark back roads, you're probably going to be fine to do whatever you need to do. I think tomorrow is going to be a fairly normal Saturday for most people. Well, could be a fairly normal Saturday if you want it to be. I think tomorrow.
I think neighborhoods will still be.
Yeah, I think back at the back, if you're in the back country or if you're back in deep in the neighborhood, you might have a little effort getting out of your hood. But I think all the major roads are going to be fine tomorrow morning. All the secondary roads are going to be fine tomorrow morning. They're never coming into your neighborhood, so that's just that.
Right. That's what was bad about last year. It was so much and it was so compacted that, a street like yours, it's flat. Like, it was just a sheet of ice for like a week and a half.
Yeah. And the only thing that was nice about mine is that we had a thick sheet
of ice.
Right, we had so much traffic on it of people picking up salt while they were driving around. We kind of got salt deposits.
Yeah.
As people were coming into the neighborhood, and it kind of worked its way out. So yeah, but that's the thing about this with those. It's not supposed to get that cold tonight. It's sub-freezing, yes, but not like super cold. Like, okay, that was the question. We were talking about this. I was talking to the kids about this. I don't know. Like, so when you add salt to water, how far does it drop the freezing point?
I don't know the equation. It's not that much. When I remember seeing a number of times with local weather talking about it, there is a certain point where salt doesn't do fuck all.
Adding salt to water can lower its freezing point by around 21 degrees Celsius or minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 6 degrees Fahrenheit when saturated with salt, meaning the more salt you add, the further the freezing point drops until it reaches this minimum. So if it is super, super salted, it can get to minus 6 and not freeze in Fahrenheit.
Which
that's not that much salt. I get it. But
no, I'm saying you're never reaching that kind of like salt concentration.
Right. But, it's still, in Fahrenheit, that's a 38 degree swing from zero salt to maximum possible salt. Right. So, somewhere in the middle of that, probably in the 17 to 25 degree range is probably the more realistic one. I think the low tonight is 25. So any of the roads that are salted should be stay liquid if they aren't getting dried overnight.
All right.
We're not supposed to get any more precipitation after midnight. And if they're still if the crews are still out working them, I think tomorrow. I think by the time you guys are hearing this, if you're listening to this when it releases, you should be good if you can get out of your neighborhood. That's all I was trying to say. Unless you have some weird back road or, you know who you are if you're in a spot where it doesn't matter what the city or county is doing to help you. But I don't anticipate tomorrow being a bad day. Take the day, be chill if you want to. I'm not saying do something, but outside of that,
you can if you want to.
Right.
They were interviewing some guy. I think he was up around like Gatlinburg or something, and he was like, "Yeah, he's like, I love to hike." He's like, "So I told my wife once this stuff started coming down, he's like, I'm going hiking."
Right, gonna get out and hit it.
So it made it kind of sound like he kind of grew up with it. It was something he doesn't see very often. Like, I guess he missed the big snowstorm last year. Was out of town for whatever reason. But I was like, I missed the one last year. Hadn't got to experience it in a while. Wanted to get out and enjoy it.
All right, so I think the weather will be the top story for the next couple of days. But going back into the week that was here locally, what's on the big story list for you this week?
I think the biggest thing I recall seeing, I think we talked about it last week, was that pedestrian bridge. I did see they got approved for some. I don't know if it was a different grant or it was the same grant.
Same grant. $24.7 million. They asked for 25, so they did pretty good. So there's many. Oh shit! I hit a button. It might freak out. Don't freak out.
But that was the final vote. Like, so that's the. That's like, I guess, the end of the attempt, and now we'll have to do like the different proposals from the different companies that want to do it or whatever.
Right, the Department of Transportation or whoever was overseeing the grant proposals from the federal government has approved the city of Knoxville's grant request for this pedestrian bridge project. The state of Tennessee has already got $20 million earmarked for it, so that gets us to 44.7 of about 65 estimated. We don't have an official estimate because they've not done official engineering and drawings yet. So that'll be the next step. Is like, we've got some random mock-ups that have been floating around, and that's what the pictures are that you've seen in the paper and stuff like that. But we have no idea what the actual bridge will look like. Those design mock-ups that we've seen are just literally somebody drew it on a piece of paper and said, hey, that would look kind of cool, and that was it. I assume they're going to go to something like that, but like an actual architect and engineering team will have to get together and draw the exacts and then do the materials and parts list and labor and all that kind of crap, and then they'll churn out the official number. So City of Knoxville is going to be making some sum up of the total number. But apparently the totality of the landing spot on the south side is a TIF district, and one of the largest parcels of land that's down there was owned by the University of Tennessee. The University of Tennessee gave it to KCDC. KCDC will be looking for, like, this is literally where the bridge hits the ground on that side. So KCDC has already kind of soft started the process of looking for developers to develop on that, and when KCDC does that, they sell it back. So TIFs, like pilots, are based on the change in property tax revenue.
All right.
Right. So a TIF is instead of a TIF goes, so you build a thing on this land, it goes from generating $10,000 a year to $15,000 a year. That $5,000 goes to paying this loan off instead of into the city's general fund. That's generally how the TIFs work. But since the university previously owned the land, no property tax. KCDC currently owns the land, no property tax. When it's developed and given over to private ownership, the totality of the property tax raised at this new site, once it is completed, will go into the TIF fund that will help pay for this bridge.
What are the chances they kind of get that, like the architecture firm, to where, that as it sat was a zero property tax. So now the new owner kind of gets to take that over, or gets to assume that lease or whatever.
Are you?
Is that a possibility?
Are you talking about the laundry building?
Well, in reference to it, of a situation to where somebody got to come in and take over a lease that, as it sat, didn't have any kind of property tax. As you were saying, that the landing spot for the bridge is KCDC now.
Right. I don't know. Like KCDC, outside of like some residential stuff sometimes, but they very rarely do land management. So once it becomes a thing, KCDC will not own it. They will sell it to a developer. But basically, this is the way I understand it. I could be totally wrong on this. Please, somebody, almostinagreement@gmail.com. I'll talk to Scott about it if I remember, because it is a weird thing. But the way I understand it is KCDC it's just a tool that the city and state has to kind of move properties around and get different things on it. So basically what KCDC is going to do with this one, as I understand it, they will put a request for a proposal, not indifferent to how the city of Knoxville would do a request for a proposal for a certain project or something like that. But inside KCDC's version of it is the request for a proposal is, hey, somebody build something on this piece of land and we'll sell the piece of land to you in the process. Where, if I own that piece of land, I could try to do something like that, where like I'm only going to sell it to somebody who builds something that I want to see on it. But that's a harder thing to sell in a private transaction. Like if I was selling you a piece of land under the agreement that you were going to build a thing, it's harder for me to guarantee that you're going to build the thing I wanted you to build. Right. Where KCDC has some legal weight to throw around. Like we sold you the land with the understanding that this is what you were going to build. This is what we approved the sale of the land to you to get built on it.
All right, because it's usually done at a considerable discount.
Right. Probable. You know, but at the end of the day, the city of Knoxville didn't pay for the land either, and so it's free money. For the actual sale itself is free money. It was gifted from the university to KCDC for this purpose, which I didn't know that part. We'll see. I'm still like I will put the asterisk on this episode and says, here's me placing the bet. I'll bet you over the next 10 years, a significant portion of the South Knoxville, west of Henley Street, I guess it's Chapman Highway at that point, that gap between Chapman Highway and UT Hospital, that a significant percentage of that starts getting bought up by the University of Tennessee. Residential, commercial, all of it. Because
it's right there along the river's edge.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say down to like the quarry, maybe a little further. I mean, hell, UT used to. I don't know if they still do. They own that. They owned a big housing complex behind the funeral home right there off of Taliwa.
Oh, did they?
Or Moody, that's what it was. Just north of Moody, they had a big graduate student housing complex down there.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that.
Yeah, I don't know if they still. It was kind of handy because when I lived in the apartments that were next door to that, there was a gate in the fence, so I could go through that gate onto the graduate student housing, and there was a UT shuttle that went from there down to the UC. So when I was living down there and still a student, I could catch a bus right there and get down to campus pretty quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, congratulations, all you City of Knoxville residents. You are going to be buying about a third of this bridge that, you know, if you're not a UT student or if you're not giving UT money in some direct fashion, you're probably not going to be using this bridge. Not many of you. However, there is one cool feature. If you look at the Greenways map, if you would like to ride your bicycle from, hell, you get up into Hardin Valley at this point, I think, at least Cedar Bluff. You could go from the Lowe's, where the old Windsong was, the movie theater.
All right.
You can go from there all the way to Imes without actually going on any city street. You can do the whole. You'd have to cross streets, obviously, but you could Greenway all the way from there to Imes.
I tried that once. It gets funky around West Hills.
With once this bridge is open, I mean, okay. So West Hills. I'm trying to remember. You go through there. You can get in. You end up in some neighborhoods for a little bit over there by Bearden Middle School.
But it also like puts you out like right there next to like Krispy Kreme.
Oh, does it?
There's a bunch of like little funky spots because I tried to ride it once, where I got on to like Walker Springs and tried to ride it down to like Sutherland area, and it gets kind of wonky. I mean, there's signs to like follow it, but you know, like you said, you drive through a neighborhood, and then I think like out of necessity, it puts you on Kingston Pike for like a couple little chunks of it, and it's like, how do I get back off of this major road? Like, I want to go back out in the neighborhood again. Yeah,
but you can get through there, and then you can go along the riverfront there on Nayland Drive along the river, and once this bridge is open, you'll be able to cross the river on this bridge, which is not a traffic bridge, obviously, and then there's a new Trains to Trails program. Did you hear about this? This was last week. I don't know if we talked about it. No, we
talked about it. I've seen a couple stories on it.
We were
seems
talking
like
about
it's
Jimmy
a good
Carter.
idea. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting. The legalities around it are very interesting too. But yeah, that one is going from basically Kern's Bakery, the new Kern's Shopping Center bakery thing, all the way to Imes.
Right.
And so basically they're just gonna like it seems super logical. The only thing to me is I can't remember where there's an ad for it, and it's like Lexington or it might be Tri-Cities, Virginia area or something like that. That it's a city that's doing a visitors, like it's a visitors bureau advertising for this city. And one of the things they advertise is this company has built like a bicycle style rail car. And so it's like you sit down, like you sit like in a chair kind of thing with pedals, and it'd be like me, you, and a couple other people, and it's like you sit like you're sitting in a car, like
right.
2x2 kind of thing, but you pedal, but it's a train car, like it's a small, like it sits on the tracks, and you pedal through this kind of urban wilderness thing wherever this city was that I thought looked really cool.
Seems like a cool idea, because you may not be able to like go around somebody unless there's a bunch of like little switches to where you could kind of like turn off to go around.
I don't know. There is a logistics question in that stretch of it, but I know parts of that one because that goes right there behind all the stuff on Sevier Avenue, like where Highwire is and stuff like that. Like that track that they're talking about. And so the interesting legal parts of that one is because train companies have some weird spot in the grand scheme of the world, at least in the United States. Like we've talked about how they are higher on the list than most local municipalities and even states as far as land use goes.
Yeah.
And so apparently one of the things that they have rights to do in their either easement or eminent domain moves is they don't have one of the agreements that they can do when they're taking land to build a new track or something like that is it doesn't have to be a purchase. It can be a long-term lease, or it can be just a straight easement. Like your the part of your yard that's the first 4 feet from the curb of your yard is technically an easement. You can't block access because that's where the utilities get to put their stuff and whatever.
Right.
And so some of this rail section that they're talking about is technically under that easement clause with these rail companies. So the rail company owns like chunks and parts and pieces, but there's stretches or like probably like half of some of them where one landowner made them buy their piece of land to put the tracks on, and the other landowner on the opposite side of where the tracks are now got it taken with an easement.
Right.
And so there's legal argument for these people to say, okay, well, the federal government gave these train companies the right to use that as an easement. Well, if the train company is going to give it up, then I get my land back. And so there's a law firm that apparently has done this for a while that heard about this proposed project and is going and finding every landowner that's on this section of track that is an easement, not a sale, to basically represent them in suing the city. I don't know exactly how the legal part works, but they're basically saying, hey, if you're not going to give me my land back, then you need to buy it from me now, because It's no longer an infrastructure need like the train track was.
Right.
And so,
that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. It doesn't make sense that they didn't make them buy it in the first place. I mean,
easements are kind of like a weird thing anyway. It's like, all right, here's this boundary, but you also have to add an extra, like you said, 4 or 5 feet of this, defined boundary.
Right. This is yours, but we get to use it whatever we want to. Right. I mean, this line is where your stuff starts, but this line past that line is where you're allowed to treat it as your stuff. Right. That's the long and short of it. So, anyway, the stupid footbridge is coming. Congratulations, Knoxville. Hopefully they make it look kind of cool. I mean, that's my only kind of shtick in this thing is make it interesting. Don't make it just a flat bridge. Make it, give me something. Give me some arches, or make it like a cool suspension bridge. I don't know, but make it neat. Make it something that adds to the riverfront skyline, not something that's just kind of like meh.
Glow in the dark.
Sure. Get it, put a cool light system on it. Have it like firework ready, so the firework company can come out. We can do some firework shows off it once a year or something like that. I don't know. Just be smart.
I mean, you could do interesting, like, little interactive things with it.
When you're walking on it, your feet light up.
Yeah, it's different things like that.
Encourages. Make it a glass platform so you can look right down. You look straight down at the river. That'd be fun.
That actually, that'd be pretty cool.
I don't. Then I'm definitely not ever going to set foot on there.
Right.
I don't know if I could do it anyway. I have a thing with. I don't know. I've walked across the Henley Street Bridge and it didn't bother me. Actually, the storm of 2004, this winter storm we had in 2004, I walked from campus back to that house, that apartment I lived on in Moody, and walked across the Henley Street Bridge in the frigid cold. It wasn't that bad, but my fear of heights has grown over the years, so I don't know if I could walk across the Henley Street Bridge again.
Right.
Sure as shit not walking across the Gracie Bridge. I don't want to die.
Oh, it'll be fine.
Hell, if it's just me, I might take the chance, but if there's traffic on it, I might get a little jumpy now that I know how bad it is. That one, the big city, that was at the city council meeting. They announced it as part of the city council meeting this week, or around the city council meeting. There are a few city councilors who are not particularly happy about it. Our girl
Amelia
is pissed. She's pissed about a lot of stuff. That's her role. I need to call her. I need to have her come in. We need to sit down and talk. Me and her are pissed about a couple of things together. There was that shooting we did touch on for a second last week. That her and the city council movement are advocating for some transparency. That we'll see what we get to see on the situation. I don't know. I haven't heard any more details on the actual interaction, though. I'm still functioning on the word display, which I'm not a big fan of. He displayed a gun, and so they shot him. But I'm trying to be better about understanding that display could mean more than, hey, look, I'm displaying the palm of my hand. I can't hit you with it. I'm just showing you it. That's a display, but it could mean more than that. He displayed the gun with the barrel pointing at the officer, then I could understand it. So until I hear otherwise, I'm going to try to give the benefit of the doubt that these guys didn't just murder some kid. That's what I'm trying to do.
I appreciate you reserving some judgment.
But I will agree with Amelia and her rage, which is a little bit unfounded as you get to the details of it. The new KPD basically data management contract, $27 million. We touched on that last week a little bit too. That one did get passed this week. Scott talked about it on the Compass podcast today. You guys will hear more details on it tomorrow if you listen to that show, which you should. Compass Points podcast. Check it out on all your favorite podcast providers. But I still have some questions about what they can and can't do with it. There is the big one I had, and I did ask Scott on their show, is what protections from abuse are in place. Apparently one of the things and one of the reasons why they wanted this particular set of stuff in the contract is that essentially any use of the system is logged, and that log is public record.
Okay.
So if Officer Billy is trying to spy on his ex-wife, he can't go in there and pull video from a public camera that happens to be pointed at or near his wife's house or work or something like ex-wife's house or work or something like that.
At least without swiping some kind of identification,
right, without somebody knowing that he's doing
that,
right? Or without a log of him doing that. Which, when and if it came to question, if his ex-wife says, "Hey, I think he's harassing me," anybody who knows what they're doing can take 10 seconds and find out if he's using that system to harass her.
Right.
I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I'm still kind of working. Let's maybe back up. I'm absolutely sure how I feel. I don't like it. I think it's fucking Big Brother shit, and it's crazy. And I don't appreciate the premise of it. I understand I don't have the right to privacy on public roadways. So the police department or Google running their cars around taking pictures of me while I happen to be on the road that they're taking pictures on, I don't have a choice. I get that. I'm still going to complain about it though, because I don't
I've read a couple stories of people where you can actually have it done where you can put a request into Google to have your house removed from like Google Maps, basically have it blurred out.
I'm surprised that they would do that, but that's cool to Google if they are, I guess. Like I get the premise of it's. I have no right to privacy. If you're standing on my street taking pictures of the front of my house, you have a right to do that. It's going to make me uncomfortable, and I'm going to have some questions that you don't have to answer. But I'm going to have some questions about it if you're just doing it. Like the Google car drives by, whatever, fine. But if you're out there, I don't know. If just you, John Q. Citizen, was out in front of my house taking pictures, sitting in your car, parked in front of my house taking pictures, or sitting there with a video camera, just video camera in my house,
I give you some suspicion.
I would be a little concerned, and I would be a little upset. Which is essentially they keep it for 30 days. Isn't that part of it? I didn't hear on that. That's a good question. I'd have to follow up on whether or not there is a timeline for how long they keep it, because I'm going to guess it's longer than that if it is.
I thought that was part of something like the dash cam stuff.
Because Noel's thing about it is he's like, listen, we're not going to be Big Brother watching you move around around the city. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be for historical function.
Right.
We're going to be looking back at,
like, hey, there was a robbery here. Let's look for this around this time.
Right. And the real time part of it, because that's what they're calling it, the real time crime center, is still going to be. There was a report of X at this location. Maybe there's a report of shots fired at the corner of this and this. And so
they can go back 30 minutes or whatever and try to look at it.
Not even that. The non-officer, and that's another little key point to be aware of, is that they are not sworn officers that are going to be working the data center, but they're in a room with they will be in one of those rooms from the movies that's got a wall full of screens, and they can go through the system, and this is going to be linked into the 911 server as well, so that when when you call into 911 and somebody reports shots fired, that in 911 dispatching that to KPD, part of that dispatch is going to include the location that will be sent to the real-time crime center engineer, I guess is the technical term for the employee, to then go pull up the cameras around that area and start looking for, shots fired, reported shots fired at the intersection of X and Y. Caller said that there was a 6-foot male in a white hoodie, and they'll start looking. That person working will start looking on the cameras in the area to see if they can find the guy in the white hoodie, and then alert the officer that's responding to the call. Hey, I saw a guy in a white hoodie at the intersection of Y and Z, a block down the street, and they will help direct and stuff like that in real time. That is part of the system. That is part of the plan.
Yeah.
But Noel insists that the majority of it's going to be, okay, this crime happened. The officers went out. We have our detectives out there doing their thing, and then the detectives will be questioning neighbors and talking to this end, and then they're going to go pull footage from the neighborhood. One of the things, and this is the one that I'm not sure how. This is the one that I really don't know how I feel about it. I really don't like it, but I really don't know exactly on the legal side of it. Is if as a private business you have out-facing cameras, they will not. Well, if you have a camera system that is a certain hardware type, you can have that linked into the system.
Right. Yeah, I saw that.
So that it would include if I have a camera on the front of my building facing out onto Magnolia, if that's where my business is. If it's not a cloud-based system, it's something I don't know. I didn't quite understand the technical parts of it, but basically that individual camera can be linked into the system.
Yeah.
There was some insistence that no inside cameras would be at play, which I have questions about. I didn't ask Scott about it on his show. Like city county building, there's cameras inside the city county building. Are those part of the system? And that's basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's no different than Market Square is legally. Like if you or I go into city county building, we have no expectation of privacy.
Right.
So I don't know why they wouldn't use those. But there was the distinction saying they will only be outdoors. None of the cameras inside. No indoor cameras can be used through this system, which I didn't quite understand that.
For public use and talking about the city county building?
I'm talking about it just as far as this real-time crime center, no inside cameras are part of the system, is what they were saying.
And that was more of, yeah, I did see to where the public, if they did have certain cameras, like you were saying, could sign up and I guess avail their camera usage.
Right, which I find interesting too on the legal part of it, because I have cameras in my business. If I wanted to give my camera system over and let KPD monitor it inside their whole thing, I'm giving that permission. You have no right to privacy in my business. If I don't want you to have it, I have the right. I have the oversight on your privacy while you're in my business, other than, legally implied, private areas like a bathroom. Right. I can't have cameras in there, but I can have cameras outside the bathroom, so that when you go in the bathroom and come out of the bathroom, I can see who went in and went out of the bathroom. Now I don't. If I volunteer that as a business owner, the public viewing, like I could legally, to put my camera system on my website, and you could log in whenever you want and see if my place is busy right now or not. You as a customer can't complain and be like, I don't want to be on your cameras. It's like, well, then you can't come in here. I don't want to be online. It's like, well, you're in my space. I can spend. You have no right to privacy here.
Right. I think maybe that's what more of like the only outward facing cameras would be used. I think that may be more in line with the public cameras. Or it's more
right, but the weird thing about it to me is it's like, well, if something were to occur, okay, so we'll go to direct business. My central location, there's a shooting on the intersection of Central and Anderson. That's the intersection 3 doors down from my business. And a KPD detective comes in. It's like, hey, like that. But regardless of this current system, for set the real-time crime center in the background for this hypothetical I'm putting together. That detective comes in. He stops at my neighbor's business, my business, and whatever, and says, hey, we're looking into the shooting. We're trying to figure it out. Will you show me your cameras from that time period? I don't have to show them that. He can't legally force it out of me unless he gets a warrant. But if I voluntarily give those up inside and outside, he can use those.
Right.
So if the real-time thing is in the same format, it's me giving permission for them to use it. I don't understand why they are limiting themselves. I don't want them to get me wrong. I don't want them to use any of them. But if they're going to do it, why wouldn't they use it to the full capacity of what they can? And if I'm going to give my inside cameras to them, they should use my inside cameras.
I don't think they have any use to your inside cameras. The outside cameras is essentially, for most people, faces a street or whatever.
Right, but I'm saying my point is that they're saying it's only outside cameras because that's public space. You as an individual have no expectation of privacy in that public space.
Right.
But on the same legal grounds, you have no expectation of privacy when you come into my business.
True as well, to an extent, yeah.
And what privacy you have is at my discretion as the business owner, not at yours as an individual. And so if I, as the business owner, want to give your privacy away, I mean, this is theoretically no different than, Facebook selling your data. It's just a real world version of it. You don't have the right to tell me I can't use your image while in my business in association with other data that I have to advertise to you or to, get you in trouble with the police because you broke the law, whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the only thing that it's just weird. I don't like any of it. I don't want any of it to actually exist. Because the next question I have is, when are they going to start using AI in the model? Even though, like, Scott's favorite reference was, this isn't the Minority Report. And it's like, well, once the AI part of the system comes in, it might start getting a little closer to the Minority Report. Right now, it's just Big Brother. But apparently, I learned this in discussing with some people, is the English version is, if you have a system, you are obliged to give it to, I guess, the Scotland Yard or whatever the police force is.
Right.
Like, it's not you. If you have a camera system in your business, you are not allowed to keep that for yourself. You have to share that.
Huh. Yeah, I know, like, they've had CCTV in, like, London and, like, major cities for years.
I know. You told me probably my favorite story about the ridiculousness of it is that it's posted, and this will be something you're going to start seeing around town too. As this system comes online, the cameras that KPD is using will have signage on them and they will be clearly marked as, this camera is connected to KPD and they're watching you, basically. I don't know what the sign's actually going to say, but it has to be posted and shown that this camera is part of the system.
Right.
But I was pretty sure it was you that told me the story of the guy that he turns the corner around the block and there's a bunch of signage that says, this is part of the CCTV or whatever, and he put a mask on so that he wouldn't have to show his face on the thing, and he gets arrested for walking down the block with a mask on because he's supposed to be showing his face. Pretty sure you told me that story.
That's my recollection.
It might have been many moons.
With masks and cameras, I think I've heard of talk of there being some kind of like regulations of masking in certain areas. I think it was more so wearing like balaclavas and stuff.
Right. And but again, the follow-up questions I have too is like, okay, when does the AI start getting used? When do we start putting facial recognition software into these systems? Because then it's a different animal to me, because it's not just passively having a passive camera in place that an individual has to go look at to, make the identification of the suspect or the perp or whatever. Now it's the computer system doing the actual police work. Like, at what point are we okay with the machine doing the job? Because that's the slippery slope that I see of us starting with this system, and I think I don't know if that's where Amelia is.
I don't know how much you can really have AI do, because that was a lot of big fear with manufacturing, and there was a little bit of a fear there. There are aspects of manufacturing that you can kind of like hand over to machines, but there's also a good chunk of it that you're never going to get away from hands-on or actual human eyes on something.
I don't know. That's the question I have, is where, when these things start coming online, when do we just say, okay, cool, yeah, that can do it for me?
Right.
And are we as the citizenry, because I think that's the functional difference in this conversation. You're right. I don't have the expectation of privacy when I'm on Cumberland Avenue walking down the sidewalk. But I do have the right as a citizen and taxpayer and all that kind of stuff to have input on how the police are allowed to monitor me. I would think they don't, if we as a citizenry are uncomfortable with this and we would prefer they didn't, we should have the right to say that, I would think.
Yeah, you absolutely have the right to say that.
I would think that we could. I think we could also argue that hey, it is not appropriate for Google to be driving their cars around taking pictures of everybody in every building, and we can say that is not permitted on our public roadways, because it's our public roadways, and we as the public who built and pay for them have decided that that's not how we want them used.
Yeah, but with that specific instance, there's always going to be the argument that everybody wants Google Maps to be able to find things.
Sure, but again,
they will happily give away 99.9% of everybody else's houses and streets for the convenience of being able to find.
Sure, but I think if Knox County wanted to write up an ordinance that says Knox County roads, it couldn't be city roads, it couldn't be state roads, but roads in which Knox County owns and maintains, photography for commercial use is not permitted on Knox County roads. I think we could say that.
Yeah, but Google's publicly available, or Google Maps are publicly available, basically.
That's fine, and we say you can't.
Well, commercial purposes, I think you have to be profiting off of it to be considered a commercial purpose, right? Not necessarily.
Okay, that's a detail. I don't know. I'm not the lawyer here, but I would go with the premise of what I'm after.
Okay,
give me no. You're right. No, right. You're right. 100% you're right. And I apologize. That is a fair critique of what I was saying. But go with the spirit of what I'm after here, not the detail. I think we as a citizenry, if we decided that's how we want to use our stuff, you have the right as an individual, if you were driving down the street, if you want to take a picture of a house that looks cool, like, this is a beautiful house, I want to take a picture of that and share it with my wife.
Right.
That's permitted under the law that we set up in Knox County, but Google or KUB or anybody can't just have a specialty car built that they're going down taking high resolution images every 15 feet to sell, to use for commercial purposes, because that's still, I get what you're saying, but anyway, yeah, to sell or use for use for business purposes. I'm not sure how to word it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, even the Google thing, I mean, they're selling ads. I mean, you could still say that they're profiting off of people going to that site to get maps. They're still getting ads,
right.
shoved at them.
Right. So the point being is, I think, that's a question we could be able to have conversation about, and that our elected officials could look into making some rules and regulations on that level. And I wouldn't think that would be some. I don't think there might be something deep in the state rules or the federal law that precludes Knox County from making said law. But that'd have to be something. I don't know the depths of the code that well.
Under the guise of privacy.
I mean, if that's whatever. Regardless, whatever. Knox County residents don't want Google taking pictures of their houses, and so we write an ordinance that makes it so Google or any other business can't just go around taking pictures of houses. Or you could even do it in the more generous version of it is like, no county roads can be used. No county residential roads can be used for commercial purposes, for imaging, commercial purposes for imaging, or something like that. Commercial imaging for commercial purposes on no residents can be whatever. I don't know. I don't know the exact wording of it, but the commercial zones could still be available, and Google can go out there and take all the pictures they want of Kingston Pike or Cedar Bluff or any of the commercial roads, so that for the Google Maps, I want to see the picture of the business I'm trying to find on the map, so that when I drive close to it, I can see the building and know where I'm going. Okay, fine, but you just don't get that same level of detail in residential. You just get an address. I think that would be legal, something a municipality could legally do.
I mean, it's something computers could do. You could essentially, put in an image of a single story rancher for every single house going along a street. Every single house is a green single story rancher.
Right. Or they just put some stock image in the place. But either way, the point being is that if that's something that we don't want to be going on as a agreed group of people, then we should have the right to do that. And I think at some level, if you had a good conversation with a lot of people, they'd be okay with taking that away from at least private business. Now take that same conversation about this is our public. This is a public entity, the police department. Are we okay with the police department having this level of access? One of the things I like about Chief Noel is he's upfront. He's like, look, my officers are human beings, and we do our best to train and teach and train and pick the best ones. But human beings do human being stuff, and whether they're in uniform or not, they're still human beings. And so we do our best to safeguard against and put measures in place to keep things from happening. But we're also going to, acknowledge the reality that people are going to be abusive with the things that we have available. And so
I can definitely respect that. I mean, that's the only real way to be honest about it. Is that
right? If you're saying all my officers are perfect, you're a liar, right? Yeah.
I mean, even that with any technology, there's never a fail-safe. There's always a way, and there's always somebody with access that has the ability to use that information or access for ill means. And
me, if you want to make it really simple and make me happy in it, every camera that they have, I can log on to the KPD website and I can sit and have an array of images on my screen that's the same one the guy has in their little office. That would be my first step in transparency.
I can be almost in agreement with you on that.
I mean, it's nobody that I'm seeing on my screen at the time has the right to privacy. So why does KPD get to use my money, our money, to put this system in place, and they're the only ones that get to look at it? Why can't we just all look at it all the time? Just put it online. Let us all see it.
Because it's not meant for voyeurism.
Okay. So we're good with police being voyeurs, just not me and you?
They're not doing it with the intent just to watch. They're doing it with the intent, I guess, to prevent and solve crimes.
I mean, so on the reality, you're right that there are some creepy people out there that would be creepy with it. Those of us that just want to, maybe be citizen protectors and do our best to watch out for crime in our spare time.
There's plenty of publicly accessible live cameras out there.
Then the voyeurs can use those one, and those of us that want to be part of KPD system can watch it, and I can report things that I see on it to help out.
Or you can watch whatever cameras you want to watch, and KPD can watch theirs.
But theirs are ours. Why do I have to get the separate ones? It's public property. We could all be. I'm just saying we could all use it. That's all. Anyway,
you own them all.
I mean, no, I don't own any of them because I'm not technically a city resident. But the city of Knoxville owns all of them. I mean, okay, fine. You can put a hook on it that only people whose residential addresses are in the city of Knoxville can access it. And then I'll VPN myself into one of my business addresses, and then I'll watch them. I don't know. I don't know if I'd watch them at all. I'd pull it up from time to time just out of curiosity. Same way I go onto the 24-hour arrest log every once in a while just for fun. Just to see if I recognize anybody every once in a while. Not often, but every once in a while I catch somebody like, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah.
I've
done it a few times to watch. There's just like live streaming YouTube channels. It's just a whole bunch of just like cameras all throughout the world. I've watched that for 15, 20 minutes before. And just being like interested in seeing of like, there's like a camera down in
what's going on in Sao Paulo right now?
There was like British Virgin Islands. I remember there was one I kept seeing a bunch. There's like a bar, I guess, just has like a live camera that's just on like their little bar that's like down on the beach. But it's a bunch of just like city squares and different ports and just shit like that. But it's like really interesting views, but it's just interesting to watch.
Right. Interesting. Oh yeah.
Kind of that same thought. There was a story recently, I guess, when it went all the way to the Supreme Court, but it had to do with like net neutrality. I think it kind of got struck down, but it had to do with, I think it was the Biden administration that had kind of ruled the internet a public utility, basically.
Right.
It had to do, of whether or not, I think it got struck down. I don't know where it's at in the, appeals process, if it'll get up. Actually, I don't think it was at the Supreme Court yet. But, they basically kind of like struck down the Biden administration trying to say that the internet was a, kind of a quote unquote public utility, and that internet service providers couldn't throttle, your data rates, basically, depending upon competition, etc.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because that is a weird one. Like, I don't like some of the phone companies were doing that for a while, where like you had these weird your data plan. It was unlimited data plan, but once you use like a certain amount or during peak times, they throttled your access.
Right. Yeah, that was always in the fine print on the commercials. You just had to read really fast. Yeah, it was basically you're unlimited up to a certain amount, and then after that, they're like, "Oh, we can slow your shit down a whole bunch." You're like, but I got high-speed internet. They're like, "Yeah, but it's high-speed up to a certain point. After we think you're using it a little too much,
right?
Sorry."
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's that's really gross to me. Like unlimited's unlimited. It's not unlimited some of the time, most of the time, half the time. Or I don't know. Yeah, it's gross. I don't like it.
Yeah.
School board was interesting this week. Did you hear anything on the school board meeting?
Don't believe so.
So the beginning of the year, and this is normal for a number of bodies. One of the things that they always do, county commission does it, city council does it. Usually, I think city council usually does the breakfast luncheon or whatever. But the school board ones, they as a board, they put a list, their wish list of legislation they want passed or not passed, or things that they want the state of Tennessee to do on their behalf. And usually it's then presented to the local delegation. So Massey, Davis, Gloria Johnson, Sam McKenzie, all those people will get the list that the school board wants done or is adamantly against. So traditionally, actually, I think there was discussion on last year's version of this time when it was the first year in many years that on the school board's wish list was no mention of vouchers. In previous versions, it was always Knox County Schools is asking that you do not put any sort of voucher system in place in the state of Tennessee. Like, it was always expressly anti-voucher from Knox County Schools. Last year or the year before last, it was just not on the list. And Vice Chair Triplett had put in an actual pro-voucher request when they were working on their list of what they wanted. It ended up getting not passed, and so it did not make the official list. It continues to be not on the list at all, pro or con. And so it was an interesting, that's just one of those. That's the super hot button, especially this year with what's going on in the state. That was
say it again now. There was a proposal to put this in there, I guess, what the State Board of Education puts out as far as proposals?
No, the Knox County Schools Board of Education.
Okay.
Makes a list that they send to, I don't know if they send it to all the state legislators or if it's just to our set locally, but it's basically what they're asking for the
our
state.
Desires.
So, yeah, we would like more money. We would like less this. We would like more this. We would like you to change the rule on this particular thing so that we can do X, Y, or Z. And so they
said, what about vouchers, sorry?
And so for like a decade straight, it was one of the items on the list was we do not want vouchers in the state of Tennessee. And then last year or the year before last, it was just not on the list at all.
Okay.
And Triplett tried to get it added to the list as a we want vouchers. Knox County Schools is asking for you guys to pass vouchers.
But that didn't pass.
But it did not. It ended up not passing. I think she's still chair. Christie abstained from the vote, which was an interesting move. And then one of the Republicans voted against it. So, which makes sense. I don't know. It seems like a weird one. It seems like a duh to me. Like, of course, Knox County Schools doesn't want vouchers. Like, it's antithetical. Like, I thought that was a weird thing about Steve Triplett's campaign is he was pro-voucher. It's like, you can be pro-voucher. I have no issues, if you want to be pro-voucher, be pro-voucher. But it seems kind of weird to be asking for a job, which is antithetical, which vouchers are antithetical to, but you being pro that thing.
Yeah, I don't get it.
What do you mean? You don't get my explanation of it, or you don't get the idea of running for school board on a pro-voucher platform?
Running for school board on a pro-voucher platform.
Yeah, I thought it was fucking crazy. Like, I thought it was crazy that he won. Actually, I mean that race, if I'm recalling correctly, was the race that I realized how much the letter really, really actually matters around here. Because Dominique Oakley was in that race, and she ran as independent. It was Triplett, and I cannot remember who he primaried against. And and Oakley is absolutely not a Republican. She is most likely a Democrat, but she was running on the idea of the D is worse than the I. But like she actually had some educational. Well, Triplett did too. I think he was like a principal, or he was some administrator in a Catholic or Baptist private school, some sort of private school in Ohio or something like that. That apparently he was stealing some money from too. That was a whole separate sub story that came out right as the election was happening. It was kind of interesting. But anyway, Dominique.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, but Dominique Oakley was like a real person, a human being, Knox County resident. I don't know if she was. I think she was a teacher. I don't remember, but like she had all the hallmarks of hey, this lady is like a school board type of person. This makes sense. She should be a school board person. And Triplett to me just kind of seemed like a, faith in God and stuff like that. It's like cool, man, great. I'm not. It doesn't. I generally speaking, if you have faith, that's not. I don't see that as a negative in your campaigning. If you want to mention that every once in a while, but it's like this is a non-religious body that you're asking to be in a job for. So your religiosity is unimportant to it. And if you're going to make that the cornerstone of your run and vouchers, it seems pretty obvious that you have some sort of preference to Christian private schools, and you want those Christian private schools to get money. That's not what school board does. That's not what you should be doing. It doesn't make sense that you're seeking this job.
That's what I thought we were doing.
Right. I mean, essentially, you know, like, I don't know if he would admit it or if anybody would say it out loud, but it seems to me that he was put there either by somebody encouraging him to do it or on his own accord to help one of the subplots of damaging public schools to make private schools and the voucher systems more desirable. Like, that is how he's acted from day one to me. Like, he's like, this job that I sought, my role in being on school board is to hurt public schools. Or to
No way to fix it. To get rid of them.
Yeah, I mean, basically. Which, again, you know me, there's some part of me that doesn't disagree with him.
Right.
But, like, you know, that is not...
Hey there, I ain't really sorry. Hey, I'm really sorry about this.
What are we doing? Is everything okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so, you know, I don't know. Like, if your goal is to help move the vouchers along, and if your goal is to help private schools because that's what you're into, running for Knox County Public School Board doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, I think the moral of that story was, I think Dominique Oakley was the right person for the job, but I think the fact that she had an I after her name instead of an R is why she didn't win that race. But she couldn't run as a Republican. It just wasn't feasibly logical in any way, shape, or form. And so that sucks.
Get a little politics.
And the better, okay, so going back to cops a little bit, in good news, let me see if I can find a little bit more on it. The Knox County, or some crime stats came out, and for the most part, they're awesome.
Did see something about that not long ago.
See if I can find it.
Well, I think that's been the trend for the most part, like throughout a lot of the cities in the U.S.
Yeah, like we had like 8 homicides last year. The year prior was like 20 something, and in the not so distant past, we had in the 30s. So, you know, 8's more than 0, and 0 would be the goal in life, I guess. But you know, when 8, when you're at 8 from 30, I'm going to count that as a win.
Right.
And some of that's that focused policing thing, which, you know, gets a little dicey in the racial issues because, you know, the Eastern Command of Knox County Police Department, which covers the Magnolia area, spent a lot of time and energy hanging out on Magnolia, and some people in the neighborhood like that fact because their crime rates are down, and some people don't like cops hanging out all the time. So, you know, but it's certainly showing, you know, it's statistically it's showing the win.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like major crimes are down, but I think in some areas, like petty crimes have kind of gone up.
Yeah, I think one of the ones that went up that I thought that kind of poked out in my brain when I was looking at it was the car break-ins is way up.
Really?
I think is what it was. It was not carjacking, so not stealing the actual car, just getting in and stealing stuff out of the car.
Right.
I can't find that stupid.
I mean, it's like for the past like 2 years, you know, KPD and law enforcement have come out and, you know, try to encourage people to not leave their guns inside their car, because that was like one of the number one things that was getting stolen out of people's cars were their firearms.
Right. Which is a separate felony, but okay.
Right.
Like on top of I guess the breaking into the car is not automatically a felony by itself. I don't know.
Yeah.
God, if we only had a lawyer. We really need a lawyer. We need to like pile up a whole bunch of stuff and just do.
I think just breaking into it. I think it's kind of like almost like shoplifting, to where it comes into like what you took out of it,
right?
Is what kind of like elevates it.
Right.
It's like,
And then,
hey, you broke into my Yugo, but you stole my, I had 5 brand new iPhones in there or whatever.
what are you doing with 5 new iPhones, bro? I'm just kidding.
Family pan, bro. It's the only way to get. It's the only way to get a deal.
Gotta get that discount. Yeah, I can't find the email that's got all these different stats in it. The warming centers are up and running. So if you're listening to this and you're homeless, you can go inside and be less cold. What else we got going on? Yeah, that's the highlights that I had from the local stories this week. Nashville's under snow. I think session starts next week.
It's kind of odd that they declared. It just seems odd because we just don't have it happen very often. But they declared a state of emergency like yesterday,
in preparation of the storm.
In preparation for the storm.
How bad was Memphis?
And I'm not sure. I saw a little bit about Nashville, and I think they're kind of like us, where they got a few to several inches or whatever.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a buddy of mine in Nashville earlier today, just kind of checking out the I was talking to him about work stuff, but while I was chatting with him, I was like, so how's the snow over there? And he said, not bad.
Yeah.
What did he say?
I wonder if like the declaring of a national emergency, if that's more of like a funding thing. If once you have a state of emergency declared, we can start pulling, federal funds, or we can pull money out of like this fund for disasters or whatever. I wonder if that's kind of like the logic behind it.
I found a video of looks like a drone flying down Beale Street, and it looks like they got a pretty decent amount of snow, about the same as we did. Not crazy deep, but.
So one drone struck an airplane. I guess they were like a civilian drone that was flying around like L.A. I guess taking pictures of the fires, and struck an airplane.
There was a plane trying to fly out of Atlanta that like an engine failed and caught fire on the runway. And there's video of it on the news. It was on NBC Nightly. They're just talking about all the effects of the storm across the South and blah blah blah. And they were showing footage, and this reporter standing out on the tarmac of the Atlanta airport, and in the background there's people sliding down the slides out the window or out the doors of this airplane on the runway. And then a couple inches of snow, which is weird for Atlanta in and of itself.
I didn't think they were getting snow. Damn.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think they got less than we did, but it definitely did snow, and they had a bunch of delays and whatever. But I guess part of that was destinations being shut down as well.
Right.
But yeah, I was texting him earlier. He said it started later than they thought it would. He's got about 1.5 inches, but it's still falling. That was at like noon or so today. And so, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, don't go back into the snow coverage. We've already talked about it. It's going to be gone by Sunday afternoon, evening anyway.
Nah, they're supposed to be cold for like the next week. They could. I mean, the sun's going to melt some of it, but I think the temperatures.
Last I looked, the high Sunday was 36, so it's over. It's not tons over, but it's over freezing.
Right. True.
But they were well salted. Like I've been seeing trucks, and you can see how it dries on the road. Like we had the perfect conditions to have a manageable storm because we didn't have any rain leading up to it.
Right. That's usually what kind of screws us is when we have these kind of systems come in, it starts out as like a rain and a mix. So any kind of pre-treatment we try to do just gets washed away.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like I want to say it was like Wednesday. There was like parts of the interstate that you could see where they had poured and the salt had dried onto the road.
Right.
So they've been going at it for a while. What else? I didn't check with Matt to see if he made it down to Atlanta or not for the Jimmy Carter stuff.
Yeah.
He did text me about some quote from Pence. Apparently, Al Gore thanked Mike Pence. And Al Gore Pence made some reference to Gore being kind of an inspirational figure because I don't know. Quote, "I never forgot it," Pence said to Gore in the recollection of a Pence ally. Quote, "You didn't know how much that means," Gore said, quote, "coming from you." And so in the little like kind of background of it, Pence has suggested to Gore that he had done what he did on January 6, 2021, and part of what he saw Gore do in January 6 of 2001.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember, was that 2001 the Hanging Chad one?
Yeah, that's where I guess I think it was going to the Supreme Court. I don't think they had ruled on it yet, but he pretty much just kind of was like, you know what? Okay, I lost. Fine. I guess he didn't want to fight it any longer. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I'm pretty sure basically like he conceded the election when I think it would have come out. And I think, we find out since that like Al Gore would have won that election. It had to do with like the hanging chads.
Right.
I guess at that point it
super
was
long
like
Florida recount craziness.
Right. Yeah, where it had to do, I guess, like the voting machines themselves weren't fully punching holes out for the Scantron or whatever to read.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or I guess instead of, I've heard other people say and applaud him for it, instead of like having this drawn out, legal battle. He was like, okay, whatever.
Right.
I lost.
Right. But at the time, he was the current vice president, so he was at the time required to oversee the certification process. Okay. That does kind of track as far as, because I'm sure you had a contested election. Right. I'm sure the party, just like the Republicans weren't happy with Pence, I'm sure the party of the Democrats were not happy with Gore for conceding in that manner when they thought they had a chance to take it. So yeah. I can see the parallels of those two situations being. I can see how Pence could see that Gore action as a, as an admirable action that he then emulated in some way. That makes sense.
I forgot that Gore would have been head of the Senate at that time when they would have been certifying the election.
Right. I mean, I'll give it to Kamala too. She did it she got up there and was pretty straightforward and cool and legit about, announcing the Electoral College votes as her job required. She could have been a sourpuss about it, but she was just like, Electoral College votes for Donald J. Trump, blah, blah, blah. Electoral College votes for Kamala Harris, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if you see any of the coverage of that.
I saw some clip of, I think it was just a picture of Speaker Johnson, like over her shoulder, I guess, like during that, with like a smirk on his face. And I think they were kind of talking about that of her having to, announce his winning and him just kind of being like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I could see that, and especially since he got reconfirmed, despite the craziness that was concerned with that one going down.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be more drawn out than it was, but I really think that enough of the Republicans got together and were like, hey, we can't look like jackasses again and take this to 15 fucking rounds. But I think that was McCarthy that went to 15 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Or however many it was. It was way more. It broke a fucking record.
Yeah, it was craziness. And I mean, I think, Trump and or the Republican Party at large, like you were saying, didn't want to look like a bunch of assholes.
I mean, that's my guess. My hope is that was the only reason why there wasn't as much dysfunction.
I think there was. I mean, at some level, there was need for that to get done and out of the way so they could get the certification done. Like, I don't know what the rules are if they don't have a speaker, if the House isn't settled, and they're supposed to go certify. Who gets to oversee the House as part of the certification process? I know the Senate does part of it too. I don't know. I don't remember the whole process. The silver lining in the whole last January 6th mess was, we got to learn more about how the process worked because when's the last time you paid attention to it?
Right.
And
it's supposed to be ceremonial.
Right. And so like I thought the headline on January 6th that I saw that was kind of like, okay, yeah, duh. It's like, and January 6th, 2025 goes off uneventfully. Like every other one except that one. Maybe, I don't know. There might be some other times in history where it's been a bigger when it's been a bigger craziness, maybe not than 21, but there may be other times where it's been a little nuts. I just don't remember it. I don't remember hearing any of those history stories.
I don't think it's been anything in definitely most recent history.
Yeah.
Except for the most part, it's been more of a ceremonial kind of act. Like it's all said and done. Like this is just kind of like we're dotting all the I's and crossing the T's as far as this process.
Yeah.
This isn't something, I'm sure C-SPAN live streams it, but it's not something that,
right.
all the major networks, play until it's all over and done with.
Right. I would guess that in the telecom era, it was a little bit more exciting because the ability for all that information to move around was so much slower. And so January 6th might have actually been the official time when at least the locals knew, at least the people in D.C. knew who their president was going to be.
No.
What do you mean no?
They didn't know the decision of the elections until January? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, when when it's a guy on horseback riding from Nashville to D.C. to turn in the numbers.
What kind of time frame are you talking about here?
I mean, pre-telecom, so it would have been in the 19 teens, or we'd be back in the 19th century, so the 1800s, that 100-year span before the
right.
When did the telegraph come
out? Late 1800s. I believe mid to late 1800s.
I'm saying like 1860 something, pre-Civil War.
Right, but you think they're like riding horseback, and it took a month after a November election. It took them a month to, I guess, tabulate and then send horse riders around to all the major cities to tell them who the election was. But they waited until January 6th when the papers could finally catch up.
How do you think
put the information out?
I mean, sure, I would assume.
I'd say it probably took a week or two. But
my assumption in the process would be the much slower version where all the precincts, because the same process exists, all the precinct ballots get added up and then get taken to the district. So it would be all the Knox County precincts get counted and take to the district of Knox County and get accumulated into one pile. And then get counted, and I'm sure the local news gets hey, Knox County voted for Donald Trump, and whatever, and I'm sure that the news people had information coming in from surrounding areas as soon as it was available, kind of stuff. But then somebody went from Knoxville to Nashville somebody went from Memphis to Nashville, somebody went from. I mean, how does it I wouldn't think that the Knoxville district would report directly to D.C. They would report to the state of Tennessee and compile the entire state together, which would take a while to physically get there and then a while to physically tabulate. And then somebody would take that physical tabulation and take their happy ass. Well, I guess the electoral college part is the state of Tennessee would say these are the people who get to go to D.C. and vote. Right? That's how the electoral college actually works.
Right, but again, that's a ceremonial process of it. I mean, that's how it works, and that's how who we vote for. I guess the electors that will essentially pull the proverbial lever of who the populace voted for.
Right,
but
and so those people have to get informed that they were selected, and then they have to get their happy ass to Nashville, and then Nashville sends a fixed list. Or those people all have to go up to D.C. and cast their ballot.
I would think the electors come to the state of Tennessee. They probably have some kind of caucus of deciding.
Okay.
But as far as sending those same delegates up to D.C., no.
Well, I mean, one way or the other, I would think it'd take a couple days to get Knox County settled down, and then travel time from Knox County to Nashville, which on horse and wagon, I don't know how do they do it? How do they get from here to Nashville?
I mean, probably horse. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say, what do you think that? How long do you think it'd take to ride a horse from Knoxville to Nashville?
2 days.
Okay, so we had a couple days to get the shit together, a couple more days to get to Nashville, right? And we're not the furthest in it, so there's going to be longer times for other districts around the state. Some are shorter, some are longer. And then the state compiles that list. And then how long do you think it takes to ride from Nashville to D.C.? I think a month.
A week.
I think a month is probably a reasonable time frame from election day to getting the information to D.C.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a reasonable time frame. Yes, that would be early December. And probably, yes, California would probably be a little bit longer just because it'd take them longer to get there.
At that time, California wasn't a state, so you didn't have to worry about that.
Okay, well, it's the furthest west state in 1870. Kansas? Was Kansas a state yet?
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, let's say Midwest.
Illinois, Wisconsin, probably still about a week. You're probably right. So, okay. I'd say it'd be like early, mid-December by the time that all the information got to the central area of D.C. to get fully tabulated and then put together. And then I would say it'd take a couple days to run the numbers. And so, yeah, mid-December we would know it. You're right. All right. I was a month behind. I decided, everything moved slower back then. And more importantly, most people didn't give a shit either way because the federal government didn't do much of anything in their day-to-day lives until the Civil War, really.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff it depends where you were. Like if you were out in the western parts of the current states and or territories, you saw a lot more of the federal government. If you were in Oklahoma or something like that in that era when the land grab stuff was going on. What was that called? The Sooners. What are they doing? The homesteading. Yeah. I learned this on Jeopardy the other day? Do you know when the last parcel in the Homestead Act was officially settled?
1883.
1997 in Alaska.
Oh wow.
That was the last part that was on the, and it was some weird thing like everybody'd forgotten it existed and somebody found it in the law and he went and claimed it.
Yeah. How things happen from time to time. It's like, oh shit, I found this.
Yeah. It was you might as well, if it's there. I don't know what you're going to do with that piece of land out there. But hell, you own land in Alaska, you get some of that oil money, right? Isn't that how it works?
Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, I think there's something with like every citizen of the state gets, say, maybe like $2,000 a year. I mean, I don't think that quite offsets the cost of living that it.
But that also implies that you're not paying a tax in. Like, why would you pay a tax in to get a tax back?
No, you're still paying taxes. You just, I guess, with being a resource-rich state, that every citizen, for whatever reason, I don't know the reasoning behind when it ever got passed. I don't know if it was just because there were so few people there that they were like, yeah, we can do this, and trying to keep the population from moving out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably part of it, is probably trying to offset that cost of living and try to encourage some people to stay.
Yeah.
And not to push back against the petroleum business. It's
right. That's probably really what it was, is just to buy off to let that.
Like, don't forget why you get $2,000 a year,
Agreed. I don't know. I'm running out of stuff. You got anything else, man? I'm trying to think of what else that was a pretty good rundown of what popped off for me this week.
Nothing else really local.
Oh yeah, I forgot about one. I don't know. I'm still looking into this one. I've got my man Scott. He's going to do some digging for me but he's not going to do it right now because of the snowstorm. I was on Westland, turning left onto North Shore over there by Lakeshore, right? And coming down North Shore, turning left onto Westland /Lions View or whatever, was a city bus or what looked to be a city bus, but it had a Knoxville Fire Department wrap on it, and the little sign that says where the route goes just said KFD. It appeared to be that city bus had left the CAT bus system and was now property of the fire department. And I'm trying to figure out for what reason the fire department would have need or want for a city bus. Because it didn't look like, I mean, I know there is a bus route that runs right through there.
Right.
But like I said, where the bus route, the digital sign that showed the route said KFD on it, so it wasn't running that route, at least currently. And I know in the past they've done some different stuff with like the external look of the buses as far as doing wraps or other design things on them. But it didn't seem to be that. I don't know. I was very confused.
It could have just been a temporary thing. Maybe it was some kind of special Knoxville Fire Department thing that was going on where they did like a tour of the city, rented out a city bus or whatever.
All right, but to put the kind of but to pay for the wrap part of it, if it was just a temporary, that seems like a little bit of a waste. Like,
I mean, maybe they got to leave the wrap on for a certain period of time. But as far as like them designating that bus KFD or whatever, I don't know if that was just because they had KFD upper ups going around for a special event.
Yeah, perhaps. I wonder how that works. I wonder if you could go to CATS and just rent a bus and be like, hey, I want to rent a bus for an event.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they've got spares in the back.
Because
you assume they at least got 2 or 3 sitting around the back just in case one's out of commission.
I mean, hell, they've got. I mean, I'm sure. This was one of the older models, so I think this was. It wasn't one of the electric buses. It might have been one of the propane buses, but I think this actually might have been a diesel bus.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they have those in the current working fleet anyway. I don't know. I'm not 100% on that one. But Scott's going to call some people for me and try to find out because it might be interesting. He was interested. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, yeah, I thought it was weird. I might have just not understood what I was looking at. But it didn't seem to be like it was a working city bus. It seemed to be that it was property of the fire department. And what reason would the fire department need to have a city bus? Or a bus that functions like a city bus?
Right. I'm with you on the questioning of the functionality of a large capacity bus for the fire department, unless they're doing like some large evacuations, which you can't really preemptively do that.
Scott's best guess was that they were using it to shuttle people to warming centers, and I was like, yeah, but why would they do the rapid stuff for that? Like that would just I could see the fire department and CAT working together to help bus people to these warming centers and back and stuff like that, and that's just part of their municipal duties. But it appeared to me that the bus was owned by the fire department, not by CAT Bus anymore.
All right. Oh, maybe it was KFD getting a little insecure. Like, everybody always talks about the police department and forget about the fire department.
We got budget to burn. Let's do something with it.
Yeah, that could have been part of it too. Yeah. Like, hey, let's do an ad campaign, and like, well, it's not a big ad campaign. Let's just do like one bus driving around Knoxville.
Yeah, which again, like what threw me off is that the bus route sign said KFD. If it had said if it said like 11 or whatever it is that actually runs through there, I wouldn't have put another thought into it.
Right. That's what makes me think that it was some kind of like tour thing they were doing. Yeah, because I know they'll do that every once in a while, like a charter bus. They'll put whatever company it is that's going around.
Yeah, it's fun. That's the thing. But yeah, anyway, that was the only other thing that I could think of that popped out this week. I just wanted to get that on record before I forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to go into national stuff.
Yeah, I'm good with skipping. we touched on the certification part, and that's that. Yeah, there's nothing really on that plane that's piquing my interest in any way, shape, or form. I don't know. Let's get weird for a little bit, and we'll see where we're at. I fixed the buttons, so. Ooh, that's loud. All right, buddy, get weird for me.
We got some U.S. states not running on Dunkin' Donuts due to temporary supply shortage.
Oh, Dunkin'.
Let's see about this.
It's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore, though.
Right.
They dropped it.
They dropped the donuts. Now it's just Dunkin'.
But
They actually mentioned that in the first sentence.
But Dunkin' is out of donuts.
All right. Dunkin' dropped the donuts from its brand name years ago. Now, at least across Nebraska, New Mexico, and some other states, it doesn't have donuts on the shelves either.
Does it say ha 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 in the story too?
No, that was just me.
Oh man,
gotta not plagiarize. I got to. That's what I'm looking for. Try to paraphrase. Got to paraphrase without plagiarizing.
Yes. You got to add a little bit of flavor. You got to add a little personal flavor to it so that so that we know it's you talking about it.
Let's see here. Due to manufacturing error, trying to see what it was all about.
I mean,
some locations did offer munchkins or donut holes on Friday.
I remember something happened like that with Krispy Kreme, and it was a big deal. People freaked out. Krispy Kreme had an issue in there because that's like Krispy Kreme's thing. I don't know if Dunkin' might be the same thing, but Krispy Kreme's thing is their commissary in North Carolina. They're from Charlotte, right?
Actually, I don't know where they're home based.
I know it's North Carolina, but I'm pretty sure it's Charlotte. Anyway, wherever it is in North Carolina where they started, every ounce of donut mix comes from there.
Yeah.
And so like it just gets, it gets shipped to, I don't know if they ship it to a distributor and the distributor distributes it locally or they ship it directly to store. I don't remember how that part goes, but there was an issue where they had to shut the mix plant down for a couple days because they had some sort of problem there. The machine broke or something crazy. And that there was a shortage of Krispy Kreme donut mix. Therefore, Krispy Kremes didn't have donuts. And that was a news story about a decade ago. I do recall that. I'm guessing that Dunkin' probably has something similar to that in there.
I always have wondered, like, where, I guess, like, it's got to be regionally, but where, like, the dozen kind of cases that you buy at a grocery store or whatever, where all those come from. Because it's not the local, Krispy Kreme stores that you have.
Is it not?
I don't believe so.
It might be one of those they give licensing
to a bakery.
They give licensing and right to buy their mix to a bakery. Because like a lot of those breads, like like Wonder Bread or whatever, like big brand name breads that are national brand name breads, they're all baked here, but that's not Wonder Bread's not from Knoxville,
right? But
those companies have local bakeries that they give rights to do that baking for them. Apparently, that's a very interesting, lucrative industry, the bread industry, because these guys buy their routes, and it's a big deal. Like you spend a lot of money buying a bread route, and then you go pick up the bread and take it to the grocery store or the gas station or wherever to sell your bread. And so, depending on the route, they're worth a lot of money.
Huh? It's more of like a private contractor thing. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so I
figured it was more kind of like with the beer and alcohol, it's more like a distributor thing.
No, I think it's like, I mean, it's. I know one of the things that the bread does that beer and alcohol don't do anymore that they used to do, but they don't do anymore is that like the grocery store doesn't order bread. You just come in and make sure there's enough bread on the shelf. So it's not like, hey, we need 15 flats of white bread. It's whatever. Just make sure there's bread on the shelf.
Yeah. From the grocery store's perspective, they're like, just make sure it's there, or we'll find somebody else.
Right, and you got to rotate it out, and you got to pick up the bread that's up past date and stuff like that. And one of the things that bread guys do a lot is if you're ever paying attention out there, people, no matter what bread you get, the twist, whatever the twist is, or the clip that's holding the bag shut, the colors, there's a color for every day of the week.
Huh.
Different companies use different colors. But, like, you'll see that they're white twists or they're yellow twists or whatever. That one, like, if it's a white twist, that one was baked and bagged on Monday. So the guys that are out there working it and pulling the old bread, that's the first thing they look for is the twist. Because that's...
Right. Instead of having to look for that hard to find, printed on weird label on the bag itself.
Right. I don't remember, like, and again, I'm just making up the details because different companies do it different ways, but they all do some version of that. as their
That makes sense. I mean, it makes it easier for that merchandiser when they're trying to rotate out or whatever.
right as their cheat code.
They're
for
not picking
their
up
employees. Yeah.
Right. They can take a quick glance and be like, okay, that one, and that one. Yeah.
Indubitably. All right, get weird one more time, and we'll call it a show. We'll go short today.
Let's see here. Yeah. Elk on a shelf.
Elk on a shelf. Elk was a clue on Jeopardy.
Was it really? Wildlife officials and several climbers rescued a bull elk by lowering it down a cliff after the animal became entangled in a rope at a popular ice climbing area in southwestern Colorado.
Oh, damn.
Encountered the distressed elk Friday morning. They darted the undulate with a tranquilizer. As far as they threw an undulate. That's funny.
It's a good word.
Yeah. Gotta spread the vocab.
It's it's just a writer, flexing how much his vocab he's got. Exactly.
Yeah, or could have been AI writing it too.
You're probably right. I don't know, because that's going to be hard to find out there in general use, for AI to pick up as a usable word. Anyway, so they slung it in, they slung it up to some ropes and lowered it down the cliff, and it ran away and lived on happily ever after.
Yeah, seems to be the story.
Probably got ate by wolves like an hour later. I'm such a pessimist on those. Those are some of the funniest, like, the terrible funny videos every once in a while. There's one where it's a dog. Was it a dog? So this little girl, like, had picked up a bird that had fallen on the ground and was, like, lifting it up in her hands and holding it all gently and stuff like that, and kind of gives it that little bump to let it go, and it starts flying off, and the dog just, like, their family dog just snatches it out of the air, like, right in front of her. And it's like, oh, that's terrible but hilarious.
Yeah.
Cracks me up.
A few of those. Saving the animal only to find it.
Right, only get it,
quickly
only
killed.
see it killed like 10 seconds, not even 10 seconds later.
Right. Oh, yeah, we rescued it. Oh my God, no.
Yeah. That elk's emaciated and tired from being strung up and all that kind of crap, and it's trotting back in the woods. It's not in its herd. I can see the wolves taking care of business pretty quick on one of those.
Very possible.
Very possible. All right, you got one more good one, or you want to call it there?
I think that was the only real good one.
All right, man. Hopefully the weather works out next week and we can do a regular show with bodies in the room and have a good time. Either way, I enjoy spending the time with you all the time. So that's a show, everybody. Last call, friend.
That's all I got.
That's all we got. We did a show remotely in the snowstorm. All right, like I said, be careful out there if you have to be out there in it. It should be, this too shall pass, as they say. So the great storm of 25, I'm assuming this is it. We might have one later. We'll see. The crazier things have happened. Almost an agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostinagreement.com. Check us out on all your favorite podcast providers. Like, friend, follow, share. Text it to your friends is a good way to get it out there. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.